Hey everybody, Jay Weidner here, Reality Check. Thanks for watching, subscribing, and everything. I went to the Disclosure Fest. That's why I haven't done anything for a while, because kind of took it out of me. And I have to say they did a pretty good job. Over 2,000 people there, really good speakers. And one of the things that I really liked about it was really trying to achieve kind of a high degree of intellectual inquiry. There was three lectures on alchemy, which I've never seen even one. I mean, the BS alchemy, like spiritual alchemy, but real alchemy. And one of them was mine, and had a packed house, wasn't an empty seat. People were struggling to find a seat, and there were stand-ups in the back because there were no seats. And so it really went really well. I hope they do it again, and went a lot better than a lot of the conferences I've been to lately. And it was very encouraging, I have to say, very encouraging. And anyway, so as you guys all know, JFK X has been out on Prime now since July 11th is when it came out. It's doing really well, and I'm really happy with it. So because we're approaching the 60th anniversary, which I believe is tomorrow, or no, the day after tomorrow. Yeah, the day after tomorrow. I thought I'd bring my fellow filmmaker, Ryder Lee, back in to discuss the updates on the JFK stuff and how our film seems to be causing quite a wake, which I did not expect, to be honest with you. I did not expect. I thought it would kind of fly under the radar, make a big hit, but I didn't expect a reaction like we're getting. Hey, Ryder, how you doing?
How's it going, Jay? Thanks for having me on. Really appreciate it. And the 60th anniversary coming up is incredible. I've never seen so much JFK stuff in my life. It's unbelievable. Hulu is making a docu-series. Paramount made a series. National Geographic made a series. And it makes you wonder why for the 60th anniversary, right? They didn't do this for the 50th anniversary.
Or the 40th, or the 30th, or the 20th. They didn't do anything, honestly, Ryder, for the first 30 years at all. Nothing. You would occasionally see maybe a half-hour thing about, oh, so sad, or the Kennedy was a crook. That was really what was going on in the late 70s and 80s. It was all that Kennedy was a womanizer and Kennedy was a criminal. That's what you saw. You did not see anything else because they were in massive cover-up. And then Oliver Stone, almost 30 years after the assassination, put out his great film JFK, and then you started to see a little bit more coming out, but really not much. Not much. In the 50th anniversary, I kind of wondered what was going to happen, so I watched 10 years ago to see if they're going to like have a big celebration. And it was just Dudsville. There was nothing. Nobody talking, oh, the 50th anniversary is a seminal moment in American history. Nothing. And then because I peruse film productions, what's going on in the film world. So right before we began the production of JFK X, I looked at the what was in production for all the studios, and there was nothing on. Okay, there wasn't any films at all in early June of this year. There were nothing in production, and then I noticed in late July, about 2 weeks after our film, I noticed that all of a sudden Paramount decides to do a thing, Hulu decides to do something, National Geo decides to do something. All of a sudden, I've seen all and they're fast productions. These are usually takes a year to do a documentary, but these are not. These are productions that are starting in July or August that are being put out in November, which is incredibly fast. I mean, they must have a huge crew. As you know, you would need 5 or 6 editors to do that, what you did in the same time period. And so I believe that we we thought it was a small pebble, turned out to be a gigantic rock into the pond, caused gigantic waves going in all directions that nobody anticipated. It just came out of the blue. Nobody anticipated what we were going to say in the film, that the whole friggin' thing is a fake. And nobody expected that. And they scrambled because for some reason they would rather have us think that it's real than have us think that it's a fake. They would rather have us think that the CIA in a nefarious conspiracy is behind the assassination, although nobody ever says how or why this is. They just say it. And you would think the CIA would thankfully say, oh, see, we didn't have anything to do with it. These guys just proved that we had nothing, we're in the clear. But no, it can't, because they're too embedded in this fake reality that they've created. And I'll bet you there's even agents who watch our film and still can't believe what they're seeing.
Oh, I guarantee it. And it's interesting because you would think that the 50th anniversary would be something more than the 60th anniversary, which then brings in the question, why the 60th anniversary? It doesn't really make any sense. And all of the propaganda, see, people, whenever they say, oh, the CIA assassinated Kennedy, and then you ask them, who in the CIA was it? They don't have any idea. They just blanket it all with the CIA, and all of the documentaries that's come out so far has just been there to instill the propaganda that's been going on for years and years and years. I mean, one of them brings on some of the witnesses that was there that day.
I'll go one step further. It's more than that. They are purposely clouding up what we're saying in JFK X. It's on purpose. The trailers are immediately, the first thing you're hit with is 3 shots. I heard 3 shots that day. All of a sudden, witnesses that heard shots are coming forward, even though before they're struggling to find anyone who heard 3 shots. But here's the thing. The witness at Nat Geo is bringing forth, who says, oh, I heard 3 shots. He's the guy that planted the bullet on the limousine, is now coming forth. Oh, I
Paul Landis.
Yep. Come on. He's got to be the most discredited person in the whole investigation, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he manipulated evidence. He planted evidence. This is their main witness. This guy should be prosecuted. He won't, because he's 83 years old, but I mean, he should be prosecuted, but he isn't. He's now heralded as a hero because it enforces their narrative, and that's why JFK X is such a powerful film, because it absolutely snaps their propaganda narrative in half, and they can't put it back together. And so what they're doing is they're just clouding and obfuscating the entire landscape and hoping that it gets through. But you know what? It's already gotten through. There's nothing they can do. There's so many people who've seen it already that it's already gotten through. And it's going to become a major aspect of this whole thing in the next 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, I guarantee it's sometime in the future when people come in and steal other people's work, because that seems to be the thing to do. And you've seen it several times with your other documentaries, you know, Kubrick's Odyssey, you know, people, that's like blowing up on TikTok right now, and they have no idea where that came from, and they have no idea that you created that theory and you put all that stuff together in your documentaries, right? And another thing that was interesting was I was watching the Hulu the other day, and I have ad Hulu. I don't have enough money to have ad-free Hulu, so I have to watch through all the ads, and that's a whole other story with the amount of ads and the amount of propaganda that are within the ads is incredible. It's like they're just wanting sickness and wanting disease and just pushing that nonsense on you 24/7. I tend to just mute it. But I saw the trailer for the docuseries on Hulu. I think it's called Diaries of something. I can't remember the name of it, but it almost looked identical to the trailer that I put together and the trailer that I edited for our documentary, JFK X. I was like, what is this? What are they doing right now?
Well, because they're not creative. What they do is they've been given an assignment. Okay, this documentary came out, and we want you to do everything you can to obfuscate it with your documentary. And they said, well, can we see this documentary that you're talking about? And these are just NPCs, you know, and they see it, they sit and they go, oh, wow, that's different. Let's do that. I mean, because we can't really come up with anything original. So let's just do that, because if that film is that effective and we want ours to be even more effective, we'll just steal everything from that film and put it into ours and make it the opposite, though, of it. So it's very clever what they do. And you're right. That's the thing that, you know, you and I'll have to accept, is that in 10 years, they're all going to be talking about this, but they're not going to be mentioning us. And that's okay, because the whole point of films like this is to put a meme into society. We don't need to take credit. we need to put the meme in there. We need to get the worm in there, the mind worm that's working its way through the whole thought process. And so, you know, I'm perfectly fine with TikTok having 7,000 videos about how Kubrick faked the moon landing, using all of my footage, using all of my effects and everything. And I'm fine with it, because the meme got out there. It's driving everybody crazy. The same people I want to drive crazy. And that's what I want to happen with this film. And I fully expect that in 5 years, there'll be 5,000 TikTok videos with see Squib and all the stuff that we have in our video. And look at, as they all faked us out, nobody's reacting to the gunshots. And how can they not be reacting when it's a gigantic gun that goes off and it's so loud it'll pierce your eardrums so you don't put your hands over your ears. And we just asked the questions that nobody else has ever asked. And they can't stand that. And I want to say something here, which is going to wax a little bit spiritual, but I just want to say this because it's super important. This is way off, and it's going to sound like a gigantic digression, but it's going to point back to why this film is a hit right now. It may not have been, say, 10 years ago. In my book, On the Cross of Henday, we show that the solar system oscillates up and down across the plane of the galaxy. And the major source of etheric energy is the center of the galaxy. But as we oscillate through the plane of the galaxy, we cross that place where all the matter is, at the very center of the equator. And when we pass there, that's when we go into the Kali Yuga, because there's more etheric energy coming in because it's being blocked by this plane of matter. And that stupefies us, and we become really stupid. And for the last 3,000 years, we've been in the Kali Yuga, but we're now coming off the top of this mass of stuff that's stopping the etheric energy from coming in. And we're now getting hit with this etheric energy, and we're all being woken up at once. And every day we're going to get more and more awoke, and more awoken, awake, not awoke, more and more awake, more and more awake.
We don't want people more woke, Jay.
No, we don't want them woke, because woke is the opposite of awake. And so that is why suddenly a whole bunches of theories, I'm sure you keep aware of what's going on. Suddenly all of these mysteries about the universe are suddenly kind of falling away. We're starting to like, oh, wait a minute, it's not so mysterious. This isn't, there really isn't, what we thought was a fantasy is not really a fantasy, or what we thought was a fantasy really is a fantasy. We're getting it, we're starting to kind of figure everything out. And there's like this meeting of minds on the internet where we're all comparing notes. We say, well, you didn't think of that part. And then we say, oh yeah, what about this? And that's what's going on here. So we're coming off and coming into the etheric energy one more time after 3,000 years of darkness. Suddenly the old tricks that they played on us in the Kali Yuga are becoming apparent, that they're just tricks. They're just vicious tricks by magicians in the age of darkness. And everything was so dark and cloudy, we didn't see it. And now, and I think JFK X actually is one of the first films coming out that's showing us how we can rethink the past and show that the past is not what we think it is. It's really a vast dark manipulation allowed because these etheric energies which power us were being denied to us just by circumstance of where we were. It travels through the plane of the outer edge of the galaxy. And this is all was encoded in the Cross of Henday in my work. And I really think that we're going into really good times. I really do. I think the times are, I think even what's going on in Israel right now, how the whole world is saying, I don't want to get political because I don't take sides. It's like I don't take sides in boxing or football games or anything. I just don't take any sides. I don't care. And I don't take any sides there. But you can see that the whole world is saying, no, we're not doing that anymore. Yes, we did that for a long time. What you're doing to those people, we did that for a long time. And everybody did it. But no, the whole world saying, no, we're not doing that anymore. And you can just feel a whole new pressure being put upon people who are doing aggressive actions and killing people. And you can kind of see that we're done with it. We are just done with it. We're not going to put up with it. And as much as I support the people of Israel, Israel's on the edge of becoming a pious state, and they better watch out because It's a whole different age right now, and we're not looking at the world in the same way, just as we're not looking at the Kennedy assassination in the way that they want us to look at it.
Yeah, it's interesting too with the war. I mean, it might be because we're not directly involved, and that's why people are like, "Nah, let's not, let's not so much worry about it." But if there's a terrorist attack or some kind of attack on the United States, then people would be all for it. I mean, look at
It would be,
9/11.
oh, for sure.
9/11 went directly according to exactly what they wanted to happen.
Exactly.
Everyone
That's
was
why
all together. Everyone all of a sudden became patriots whenever 9/11 happened. Everyone had American flag. Even people in California, the most liberal state in the United States, had American flags.
I was there in California. I went to a coffee shop in a very liberal town. It had, we support the troops on over the coffee shop, which I support the troops, although I don't want them to die. I want to support them so they don't die. And I went to get a cup of coffee, and I just like lost my shit. It was like 2 weeks after 9/11. Said, "You people are all being manipulated," and then I could see that it wasn't all I was doing was creating a mob that was going to kill me if I didn't get out of there. But so yeah, you're right. They could turn on and turn off the Patriot thing anytime they want. I think that it's not going to work anymore like that. I think that's old school, and I think not for everybody, but there's enough of us on our side that are going to go, nah, you're not going to pull the switch and get me to do what you want. And so I'm actually quite optimistic about what's going on right now, and I think that there's a lot of knowledge coming forth that is being accepted, which just 10, 15 years ago was not even considered. And I got most of what I'm telling you from this conference I just went to. I listened to the languaging of people and how they talk, and the languaging and the acceptance of ideas that were radical just a few years ago are now being accepted. I saw it in every single lecture that I went to, that they were using radical concepts from 20 years ago that are now being accepted as completely as the truth, which they are, and that means that we're actually we're elevating ourselves up into a new kind of consciousness. Now I have no doubt about it after going to the conference. And I think JFK X, its success is also part of that. And if you read the comments like on Amazon Prime or the other outlets that have it, you can see that people go, "Oh, I never saw this before. I never thought of this before." You can see they're entertaining ideas and concepts that absolutely never would have thought of before. And I think this is all part of this changing of the time and the
Well,
creation of
it's not
go
only
ahead.
that, it's not another regurgitation, right? We're just not
Okay.
recycling all the old information now. We do have, I mean, the first act is a lot of the official story and a lot of the background, but the bulk of the film is something that people have never heard before. So I think that that's what is really propelling it forward, because it's something completely different. I don't think that these other documentaries and these other big high
Yeah.
production documentaries are going to do anything, because it's just the same thing.
Yep.
Reinforcing the exact same narrative that's been there for a really long time. And then we bust through the doors, we kick those doors wide open, and then we present something that people have never heard before. And I think that that is really intriguing for people.
Yep. That's funny you say that, because I was at the conference and I talked to Jimmy Church, who hasn't had me on his show yet to talk about this, Jimmy. And I said, he said, "Wow, man, your film." I started watching it, and I got about 20 minutes in. And I said, "Oh no, this is just another JFK film, and I don't know if I'm going to continue." And I said, "No, it's Jay's film. It must be good. I'm going to hang on." And he said, and I got to the 30-minute mark, and I was just about to turn it off because it was just the same old thing. I've heard it all. CIA, FBI, Secret Service, Oswald hiding in the theater, the whole thing. Although he said he didn't know about Tippett. I'd forgotten about Tippett. And then he said, then the second half started. And he said, holy shit. He said, that was like, what the hell? So within 5 minutes of the second half starting, he couldn't get out of his chair. It was like phones are ringing, he's ignoring it, everybody coming in. He's like, no, get away from me. I got to watch this. And he said it was amazing. And so he said the second and the third half of the film were absolutely incredible. But the thing is, we did have to do the first half the way we did it, because there's so many people that are younger than, say, 40 who really don't know the details. And so it's not going to mean the second half's not going to mean anything if they don't have the details of the first third. And so, we had to kind of bite the bullet and do it that way. And, it's the way you have to do it. I don't think it would have worked any other way.
I don't think it would have either. And that was the reaction that I was trying to get. And that was my thought process of editing and directing the entire movie. That his reaction and what you just said is exactly what I wanted everyone to kind of experience. That was all done on purpose on my end, Well,
in old school filmmaking, I watch a lot of old films, and because I'm comparing them to new films. And in the old days, because we had a longer attention span, because the internet didn't shave it off and all that, it took a lot longer for a film to get going, right? So, we take like The Shining as an example, perfect example. It takes a whole hour for The Shining to get going. It just doesn't get going until the hour, almost exactly 1 hour mark. And that used to be, regular in films and documentaries. It would take an hour of setup. And then you would have the last 45 minutes to be this great, we set it all up. Now we're finishing it all off. And we kind of went old school a little bit with this film. We said, no, we're going to take the time for the setup. We didn't do an hour, we did a half hour, but we did it the old school way, where we just did it and we set it up. And I really think it works. I really do. And I think that young filmmakers could learn a lot watching our film. I really do.
And I just saw The Shining in theaters, in a theater up in Wyoming. They played it for a couple of weekends, and it is completely different on the big screen. Like your eyes are glued to that entire movie. It's not like watching it on a TV or watching it on your phone or downloading it on whatever, but watching it on the big screen was a completely different experience. I didn't take my eyes off the screen one time. And that just shows you how incredible of a filmmaker Stanley Kubrick was. And it was just incredible. I didn't check my phone, didn't check my watch, nothing. It was just glued. And I had seen it over 100 times at least. And it was probably
but never on the big screen.
Never on the big screen. It was, and I saw some things that are going to be in our next film that I would never have seen watching it on a regular TV. So
no, that's true, because I watched 2001: A Space Odyssey, Clockwork Orange, Doctor Strangelove, and Barry Lyndon, and The Shining, all on the big screen. Never watched it on the television. And I remember the first time, especially 2001, that I watched it after seeing it maybe 20 times on the big, huge Cinerama screens. And then I watched it on TV, and I was like, whoa, what a downer, like a little tiny postcard. Could barely see it. And, all the great effects that Kubrick had put in there just weren't the same. And Kubrick made it for the big screen. I mean, he would tell you that right out. And, I think the same thing is just an aside, but one of Stanley's greatest projects that he never made was a film about Napoleon. And his good friend Ridley Scott has now taken up the banner and made Napoleon, and it's unfortunately it's on the small screen, but my God, the clips that I've seen from this film, film should be released on the big screen. This is Ridley Scott at the top of his game, even though he's 85 years old, proving you actually can make a good film after you're 60. I don't know if it's a good film, but I mean, visually, that is the most stupendous film I've seen visually in quite a while.
Yeah, and is it not being released in theaters? I thought it was being released for a couple of days in theaters.
It's Apple TV. Maybe they should. I mean, it's got Joaquin Phoenix, and it's Ridley Scott, and it's Napoleon. It's Stanley Kubrick's lost film, and it's got everything rolling for it.
Yeah, I like Ridley Scott as a director.
I do too.
I just watched Prometheus again the other day. Amazingly directed film. The camera work in that is amazing, but unfortunately, the next film really sucked. The next Alien film, he should have just done a sequel to Prometheus and named it Prometheus 2, because I thought
Yeah, he
Prometheus
got
was
lost there for sure. But I'll tell you what, his first film is The Duelist, and it's one of the most strikingly visual films ever made. His second film is Alien, one of the most incredible horror films ever made. His third film is Blade Runner, one of the most visually striking films ever made. And his fourth film was Legend, again, unbelievable. And his first four films are more amazing than any other filmmaker's first four films ever. And so the guy just,
Legend is
even
with Heath Ledger, right? Heath Ledger was in Legend. Am I
no,
thinking
that
of the
was,
right
believe
film?
it or not, Tom Cruise,
Tom Cruise? Oh shit.
21 years old. Yeah, but it's still a really good film. No, it was
Yeah.
who was it? It was the guy that played the devil. He was a really good British actor. I can't remember his name, but anyway, what's his name? Anyway, it's a great film. So I'm a huge Ridley Scott fan. I thought Kingdom of Heaven was one of the greatest period pieces of all time. Gladiator, great film. So I'm really looking forward to it. I'm a big fan of Napoleon because you see, Napoleon, people don't realize that, and this is why I think why Kubrick was interested in Napoleon. Napoleon really began funding a secret group of savants to investigate the mysteries of our planet. And he went to Egypt and had a big experience in the pyramid, which I hope they show in the movie. And he was the first guy to begin studying Egypt and ordering his savants to study Egypt. And I believe, and I know Walter Bosley believes this, that Napoleon set off a series of things that continue to this day. And NASA is part of this, and the air flying machines of California in the late 1880s are part of this, and Jack Parsons is part of this, and this is, I call it Operation X. It's a secret project being funded by elites to investigate and find out everything that's going on planet Earth. And Napoleon was the guy that really kicked this off. And we'll see if they're smart, they would add some of that in. But I don't know. We'll never know until we see.
Speaking of NASA and this advanced technology, there's some people that believe that that is a reason why JFK was assassinated, was because of he knew the secrets to some advanced technology that the government was working on, which, I mean, there is a lot of really interesting information surrounding James Forrestal and JFK, but I think that it's been completely blown out of proportion. And there is some evidence and some proof that JFK was going to share some advanced radar systems with Russia. And but that being what it is, it's then now turned into UFOs and technology whenever in highly advanced technology, when it originally was JFK just wanting to share some advanced military Air Force radar system with Russia, and then it's snowballed into he was aware of UFOs and advanced technology. What do you think of all that?
Well, I mean, I did like 3 years ago, I did my MUFON lecture where I came out with all this. So he went to Germany with Forrestal in 1945, and they did visit the same bases that Joseph Farrell talks about, and they probably saw the high German technology, and it got confiscated, and of course the paperclip and all that, and he came back, and Forrestal was in charge of all that. He became the first Secretary of Defense. Of course, he got thrown out a window right after he got visited by Lyndon Baines Johnson, and so I mean, I do believe that, because if you read Kennedy's writings and his speeches, he really was concerned about the environment. He really was concerned about peace. And, he was generally a good guy. He wasn't a great guy. He's had many flaws, but he was generally a good guy. And I think that he forced NASA to go to the moon by the end of the 1960s, knowing they fully could not do it with the technology they had, because Wernher von Braun had debriefed him and told him that they needed a missile the size of the Empire State Building to get to the moon. There's no way they could build that. And so he knew they couldn't get to the moon with the technology they had, but he knew that they were going to the moon with the technology they were hiding. So he did that to force them out their hand, and they didn't appreciate it. And Kennedy marked up one more enemy that he had on his gigantic list of enemies. And so they, and it's my thesis that they did not want to show the world, and they had good reasons. The Cold War, why did you want to show the Russians your advanced technology? You don't want to do that. That violates the rules of war. So they decided to hire Stanley Kubrick, and they brought him in after seeing what he had done in Dr. Strangelove with the B-52 bomber, and the landscapes over Siberia. And they said, because they actually thought that plane was flying over Siberia in Dr. Strangelove. And they came and said, where did you get the B-52? And he said, I didn't have a B-52. That's a model we made. And we flew it over a front screen projection that we shot over Alaska. It makes it look like Siberia. And they're like completely blown away by the whole thing. And for sure they hired him. And we know the Air Force is involved heavily in all this. So that's, it's kind of the precursor to our film in a way, because it was just another enemy that Kennedy had made. And he, I'm sure he really pissed off Wernher von Braun and James Webb and all the people that were in NASA. And James Webb, he quit NASA like right after the last, I think it was right after Apollo 13 or 14. He just quit right in the middle of the Apollo program. It's like, I don't want anything to do with this stuff, I want out of here. And we now know that, it was shot in the hangar in Leeds, England, about 40 minutes north of where Stanley lived. Everybody wondered where they, if they shot this thing. There's no stage on Earth big enough. And then we discovered that actually Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong had been seen in early 1968 at this Leeds blimp hangar, which is this gigantic building, which, by the way, is now being used for movie production. They shot the entire Batman series, Christopher Nolan series, there at that soundstage now, and it looks like Kubrick was the first person to use that as a soundstage. And so, we now know that Kennedy and Kubrick are kind of inextricably linked in this weird way. Kennedy instigating what he thought was going to be freedom for technology by making NASA do something they couldn't do, and then NASA flipping the whole thing on the whole world by hiring Kubrick to do it when you can't even shoot film on the moon because it'd all be fogged. So,
But is the idea and the thought behind something in the JFK files has something to do with some advanced technology enough to keep it from the American public? I don't know. I don't know about that. I don't think that it would be. Like people in the community, have known about all this stuff. We've been talking about it for 20, 30 years. Who cares if there's something to do with advanced technology in the JFK files? Doesn't make any sense.
Show like 2 years ago talking about it. So I mean, we've been talking about this for a long time. Yeah, it plays a small aspect of the JFK files, but it doesn't play, I don't know, any aspect of the JFK assassination, because there was no JFK assassination. So, everybody can run and hide and, go hide behind the cheese or whatever you want to do, but you're not going to get away from it. You can obfuscate and put fog and clouds all over the issue, but the fact of the matter is that we have, and our films show the whole world, the clearest Zapruder film. That's the film that Abraham Zapruder shot of the JFK assassination on November 22nd, 1963, that the world has ever seen. We ran it through that ran through that high technology, and you cannot deny what you see in the film. That's the problem, is that now a very, very pixelated, grainy film has now been cleared up. So you're looking through a pane of glass now. And looking through the pane of glass, you can see everything. You can see the strange object that's on Kennedy's head, that's affixed there by him seconds before the so-called assassination. You can see the strange movements of Jackie, the strange movements of John Connolly and his wife, the strange movements of the driver and Secret Service agent. They're all looking at Kennedy before he shot. The entire car outside of Jackie Kennedy is looking right at JFK seconds before he shot. How do they know that he's about to be shot? How do they know that? Because they know it because he just put the thing on his head. That's how they know it. They're waiting for it to go off. And these things cannot be denied. And like I said before, very soon, a special effects artist, a film director, a cinematographer, an actor, somebody in Hollywood is going to see our film and go, that's a squib.
Absolutely. And that's something that they would want to keep from the American public. That would be 100% devastating to everyone in the United States, right?
Yeah, and that's why they're covering it up. And they can't cover up our films, too late. Genie got out of the bottle set to do the second thing, which is make a whole bunch of other films saying the same old crap that we've been hearing for 60 years, and they're just repeating it. And they say, oh, if we put enough of these out, then it will obfuscate these guys' films and make sure this never gets up, but it's too late. See, again, they don't understand the world we're living in. They're living in this old age. They don't understand what's going on. We're skinning under the elephant. You know, when you do a keto, you know, martial arts, a keto, Japanese martial arts, what you want to do is you want your opponent to be bigger than you. Because if the opponent's bigger than you, you use their weight against them. As they come down on you, you dodge it, or, you know, you push them this way. You don't ever have to hit anybody or anything. You just have to use their weight. And that's what we're doing here. They're so big and so large that they can't fight straight, not against somebody who's small and fast. And that's what's going on here. We're small and fast and secretive, and we got in under the radar. And I predict that it's going to be very difficult for films like that one to ever get under the radar again, which is why we're never going to make another film like that one.
and we really owe it to the first 30 minutes of the film.
We really do. We really do. Because they don't watch the second 30 minutes. That's what the guys are, let's watch 10 minutes. Oh, yeah, that's fine. It's another JFK film. Push it through. Right.
Yep. Yep. That's right. That's exactly what I think happened.
I think so, too. I really do. Laziness. We always depend on it.
Yeah, which is incredible. And also Hollywood right now. Hollywood has just gone downhill so quickly. There's been very few good films. We just got off of that writer strike, which I think is a huge psychological op to get to just move AI into the position of these writers and have these AI to write all of these movies. And there's already a movie that's coming out that's completely written by AI. Brightburn 2 is going to be completely written by AI. And then we had an actor strike. I don't know what's going on with the actor strike. It might have already been over, but
yeah, the actor strike is over. The writer strike is still going on. If the writers win, they lose. I hate to say it. That's what it is. I don't know if the writers haven't thought this through or whatever. So what's going on here is the whole entire movie industry got screwed completely. They got convinced in 2011 actually, is when they got convinced that the only avenue forward is streaming. I know, I was there. And all these people with money, they went, oh my God, streaming is the only way to go. And all these hundreds of millions of dollars poured into streaming, into Amazon and Prime and Gaia and all of them are Paramount, and everybody was starting their own streaming. And I'm looking at this landscape and going, this cannot work. And then I noticed while I was at Gaia that one of our most persistent problems was that somebody, we'd have $1.99 for a month, your first month special, right? So people would join for $1.99 and they would literally watch everything in a month. They would sit there, it'd be the winter probably when they didn't have much to do. And they would just, all January, they would watch every show all day long, watch every single show on Gaia all day long. And then when the thing comes up, they call up, cancel it, And so we just gave away, $6 million worth of content for $1.99. And this happened all the time. And I said, this cannot work. This cannot work. But the State Street and BlackRock and all these big companies sold that this was the way to go. And so what Hollywood did was, before streaming, they had theater, DVD. This is how it went: theater, DVD, cable, network. You had 4 different incomes coming in. Now today, there's hardly any theater going on at all. Great films like what's the film about that alien invasion that came out about a couple months ago?
On Hulu, No One Will Save You.
Yeah, No One Will Save You should have been on theaters. That was good enough.
Amazing film, incredible,
Amazing
probably the
film.
best film of the year.
Yeah, it should have been in theaters, but they didn't even put it out. So so now we only have good films even coming out in theaters. So it comes out on there's no DVDs going to come out of it. You won't be able to buy a DVD. It will never go to cable because it's on Hulu, because they got the deals on it, and it will never go to network. So it's going to stick on streaming for the rest of its existence, and it's never going to be seen by a wider audience. And so it's never going to make its money. It doesn't have enough revenue stream to make it. But that's not the problem. The problem is this. If I'm a production company, and I have this problem, so I know what I'm talking about. If I have a production company and I have my films out on a streaming network, and I go to that streaming network and say, can I see the details of my films? Can I see how many people watch it, for how long, what should they cut off at, so I can see what they don't like about my films? All sorts of invaluable information, right, is inside these statistics, right? They should be giving to filmmakers so they become better filmmakers, but they won't give it to you. Why? Because they'll have to tell you how much it really made.
And then they have to pay you more for the next one.
Have to pay more for that one.
Yep.
For that one. Because if they give you the statistics, it turns out that you've got 100,000 more views than they're saying. They're just obfuscating everything by saying, oh, well, this wasn't a full watch and this is only 10 minutes. And that's what they're doing, by the way. But they're not even giving those statistics out. So if the writers win, they win their strike, then Hulu and Amazon and Netflix will all have to give up their books. If they give up their books, you're going to find out that they're not making as much as they're claiming. They're not making as much as they're claiming. And then the investors are going to see that, and then they're all going to pull their money out. So if the writers win, they lose. Because if the writers win, they're going to not put them out of business, but really hurt the books on Amazon, Netflix, and all the streaming services. But more importantly, the investors are going to realize, I'm not talking about BlackRock and State Street. They already know what's going on. I'm talking about guys like me who invest in stuff like that. The small time guys, we're going to pull out because we're going to see that's all a lie, and it can't make its money, and it's all going to fall apart at that point, at which I don't know where it's going to go. I don't believe it's the end. I believe it's just a remaking of the entire business model, but we are in it right now, and there's no way to back out of it. And they can't go back to DVDs. They can't go back to any of it. So I think where it's going to end is that there's either a really wealthy person is going to put together an aggregate network where we can make a little bit of money on our films, or we're just going to have to go it alone. And I don't know how that's going to go. And I made a lot of money on DVDs. It was a super lucrative market. And I could say what I wanted. That's what was so great about it. I could put out DVDs and I could talk about subjects that were not allowed, that are now allowed, but were allowed then, and get away with it. And that's why they destroyed the DVD market, because there's too much freedom in that market. And the filmmaker getting the return back on those DVDs that they could never get on streaming or even dealing with another distributor. So,
well, I think the other problem is an oversaturation of the market. It's not sustainable. It's exactly like what you were talking about with the free trials. They'll give a free trial of $1.99 and then they watch all the content. And then the company's response to that is to create more content. And then the content gets crappier and crappier because they're just trying to push stuff out all the time. And we're going to see a lot of mergers. between a lot of these streaming services, I predict in the future. I mean, we're already seeing Paramount and Showtime merge together, basically. So I think a lot of these companies are going to have to merge together, and Disney already owns Disney Plus and Hulu. So they could literally just merge those two together and have one ultimate streaming service there. Paramount and Showtime is already together. So I think that's what is going to happen. And I think that the model in the beginning was like the Netflix model was good because they didn't have any of their original content on there. They were just putting other movies on the platform so people could view and stream. And then they got into the whole original content thing. And now they have so many different original content stuff that is just buried within the Netflix algorithm that have one season that never get another season. You know, and it.
Yeah, we had that same thing at Gaia. We were, we put out a little bit of content of our own and other people's content. And then as things started ramping up after about 4 years, all we concentrated on was our own content. And, it was a limited amount of subject matter that you could do it. And no matter how much I told people that we can't keep doing this, you can't keep squeezing the monkey because eventually going to go dry. It started going dry. And that's what's going on with everybody. What they really need is moratorium on all production. And Disney's doing this with Marvel, by the way. They've completely stopped Marvel. They're stopping everything, which is a good thing because you guys really suck at what you're doing. And then
put a chicken in and make it gay.
Well, they need to hire writers. So you don't hire people because of who they are, what they look like. You hire people because of their talent. I mean, my God, really? I remember when I was trying to be a young man, I was a writer, and I went to a famous writer, and I said, I'm a young guy. What do you suggest I do to become a good writer? And I was fully expecting him to tell me, make sure you diaphragm a sentence the right way, and make sure you get your conjunctions and your adjectives right. And I was expecting something like that. I turned around, he said, go have sex, go get in a fight, go join the Merchant Marines, go out and travel the world, get your ass kicked in, get robbed, go out in the jungle, get bit by mosquitoes. And I was like, what? And then I realized, oh, he's telling me that the only way I can be a good writer is to go out and get a bunch of experience in life. And then I'll become a good writer. And that's what I did. I went out and got a bunch of experience in life. But these people today, they don't have that. They're not going out and because they're so coddled that their parents are, the airplane, helicopter parents are not letting their kids go out and actually get their butts kicked in, fall down off a mountain like I did, fall off a tree, go out and get an animal chasing you in the woods, or any of those things because they're so coddled. So, I don't think we're going to have the good writers anymore. But if there are good writers, they probably don't want to work in Hollywood anymore. That's the other thing, is your generation isn't even all that interested in working for these big corporations and making the big money. They'd rather make their own stuff on their own terms, which is the way I was always in my life too. So I totally understand that. And so I think they're going to lose all the good talent because a good writer can stay and just do it on his own. He can make a film on his own now. He can get the equipment, and if he's a good writer, it's going to be a good film. So they don't even need the rest of the world. So I think Hollywood is dead. I really do. I think it's going to turn into something else. But the old concepts of and AI is really going to change things, man. I saw at this conference I was at, I saw video generated AI, voice to video AI. I mean, literally, okay, I want to take that same scene that was in this movie, or let's change the actors to this and that, right? And it was like, whoa, I saw the quality of it. Not perfect, but wow, it's spectacular. So I even think that where I think actually interesting films are going to be made is what we're doing, documentaries. AI can't make a good documentary. Sorry, AI could never make JFK X, period.
I agree. And I think what's going to start happening is that these actors are going to start selling their likeness to these companies, and they're just going to be able to insert their likeness, and it's going to be AI generated, and they could be dead, they could be too old to be able to act in movies, and they're just going to insert them into the movie. I mean, Bruce Willis already sold his likeness.
Yeah, but the AI is so subtle. You can say, make him look a little bit like Bruce Willis, and then
Mm.
Bruce Willis can't do anything about it, right? So it sort of looks like Bruce Willis, but it's not. And then you can say, no, it's not you. I know it looks a little bit like you, but it's not you. And so they're not. That's not even going to be controllable. And I'm not. I got to be honest with you. I'm kind of looking forward to this. I'm looking forward to seeing where this is going, because um, fiction films are just not good anymore. I don't even, you look at like Avatar 2, what did it cost? Like $600 million. And it was really good. I mean, facts were great and the acting was good, but it was just kind of a nothing film. And, I couldn't even sit through the 3 hours. I watched about 20 minutes. I get up and do something else. I come back, watch another 20 minutes because I don't know if I can even sit through a 3 hour film anymore. So I think the whole nature of cinema is rapidly changing, and I think it's going to get rather interesting. I really do. And again, the grimy, gutsy filmmakers like us will still exist because AI can't compete with us. So we'll keep making films that are just going to irritate the hell out of the cabal, and we don't really give a shit.
Yeah, I think HBO has like one of the best models because they
They
have
do.
several revenues of like they're on cable, they're on satellite, so they get that revenue, and then the next day the stuff drops on streaming. None of the other streaming services really have that besides like Hulu and maybe a few others, but Netflix doesn't, Disney doesn't. So it's
No,
like
I agree.
they're
HBO definitely cutting edge. HBO is the cutting edge of this whole streaming thing, and uh, we'll see whether they actually start taking interesting films. That's the other thing, is they do reject interesting films, and for political reasons mostly. So we'll see. Here's the thing with our film though, with JFK X, and I was telling somebody the other day. So, are you afraid of your film? And I was like, well, you're so political. And I went, actually, JFK X is the least political JFK film ever made. It's so political, so neutral on every level. It takes no point of view on all of the conspiracy theories except to prove them wrong. And so no, we are not political in this film at all. We don't get political. That's what makes it so beautiful and what makes it such a threat to the establishment, because they like to, divide and conquer, and you got to take this point of view, and then we'll take this point of view. And we go, no, we're not taking either of those points of view. We're taking a third way, like the Buddha said. And we're going to take the third way, and the third way is the correct way, because it's a little bit of that, it's a little bit of that, right?
it's also interesting too that JFK was a Democrat and all these Republicans in the right like treat him like he was a Republican or
Yes.
far right leaning. It's really it's really interesting that they take that angle. I mean, even the right's like, oh, he was the best president. Well, he wasn't a Republican. He was a Democrat.
Yeah, but the Democrats have gone so far to the left that they couldn't elect Kennedy as a dog catcher. So I think it's fair to say that Kennedy would actually be a right winger in today's politics, with his slashing the business tax as soon as he got into office, and invading Cuba, which he didn't want to do, but he did anyway. And of course, he got bad info. And so you know what? I'm gonna say it right out. Kennedy is a very flawed man, but I wish he was our president right now, because man, we could use somebody that had that kind of decision-making power right now.
Yeah, and a lot of people that's reached out to me and sent me emails about the film. They're really disappointed in that we didn't include all of the other Kennedy deaths and all the other Kennedy assassinations and talk more about RFK and all that. I'm like, hey man, like this was we originally only wanted this film to be what, like an hour and 15 minutes or an hour and 10 minutes or something like that, but there
That
was
was
just
originally hoping.
so much information in there that we actually even extended it out further. But yeah, even if RFK could have been president and not have been taken out of the picture, then I think we would have got a duplicate of JFK earlier, because
Oh,
RFK was super
oh,
charismatic. He was even more charismatic than JFK was, especially
yeah.
by making this film and doing all the research and watching all of his court cases, prosecuting the mob. It was unbelievable. I'm like, this guy is really doing what we wish we could do now.
What no one has ever done before or since is what he was doing. And he was a boxer, man. He got in the ring and started swinging. It was amazing. That guy, man, it was like a bulldog on the leash. You had to hold both hands to stop him from taking everybody down. And yeah, and you know what, you guys out there, you want to make a film about RFK? You got my blessing. Go for it. I want you to make it. And there's a lot of suspicious stuff around the RFK assassination, which really needs to be looked at. And if you need any help, give me a buzz. I will be more than happy to give you my download, because I have looked into that seriously. And I can tell you right now, Sirhan did not shoot anyone. That's why he doesn't remember shooting anyone, because he never shot anyone. And I'll explain that to anyone who wants to hear. That's not for this time. But if anyone wants to make a film about the RFK assassination or RFK's life, I'd be more than happy to give you some assistance as far as helping you out with the history and stuff. It's really important that it gets out. And he was a great man. That's all I can say.
Yeah, and they saw the direction of where the United States was heading, and in turn the world, and they were trying to stop it. And that's the only conclusion that I can come to from doing all the research for the film and making the film. I mean, in that first act, we do that entire section on the mob and what RFK was trying to do to take down the mob, and it's really incredible what he was doing and the things that he was saying. I mean, it's almost verbatim what's being said in the community now. So it's like, well, if this was happening way back in the early 60s, how far has it gone to this day? And we've talked about it several times on other people's shows. It really seems like the mob just disintegrated after that, and then they just became large companies and large corporations, and they went legit, which is almost exactly what happens in the third season of Fargo. I don't know if you've watched Fargo, but it's this Fargo's amazing. It's an amazingly directed show. It's an anthology series. It's a different series a different story every season, and it goes through all of it. But in the third season, it's basically about the mob and gangs. And then at the end of it, they take this guy that went and did all this killing for the mob, and then sat him down in a business chair. It was like, yeah, you're going to be sitting here typing. You're going to be doing all this stuff. Jimmy in the mail room just saved over $1 million by repackaging and relabeling a bunch of mail. So get used to it. This is what you're going to be doing from now on. And that immediately made me think of our film. I was like, that's exactly what they done.
Yep, that's right. They went to corporate. I think they got scared. I think because they didn't know, the mob didn't know what was really going on either with the Kennedy. Yes, they put a hit out on him, and they thought somebody in their milieu had hit Kennedy, but they didn't know the real truth. So it was just confusion and on. And I watched all of that going on, and then the Godfather book came out, and then the movie, and I think that's when the mob said, "We have been exposed. What we are is now known to the world. I think it's time for us to cool it." And they began cooling it. It took about 10, 15 years from, say, 74 to about 1990 before it was fully corporate, and you could see it in all ways. And then they started taking, and then you started seeing the corporations taking over everything. So Walmart began taking over all the small hardware stores all over America, right? So Hollywood began scooping up all the small independent film companies, and they're doing it right now. Big corporations are sucking up all the smaller things until there's not going to be any smaller things. They're all going to be sucked up unless you're making films like JFK X, which we're not going to touch with a 20-foot pole. So
and then they flood the entire community with drugs too. They just drop all the drugs.
Oh yeah. all the drugs that they brought in and the whole thing. And, we're in dire straits right now because the mob became part of our culture instead of being an outside part of the culture. It was much safer when they were outside the culture than when they were inside the culture. We let them inside the gate, and now they're kind of corrupting the entire society. And, we have crime families now that you wouldn't even think were crime families, or, the Columbos were one kind of crime family, but now we have like the Bidens are a crime family. So we have small families that are crime families and doing things that big families used to do back in the old days. So, it's all loose on us right now. But again, I want to end this on an optimistic note because I do believe we're coming out of the darkness. I believe JFK X is proof that we're coming out of the darkness, and the clouds and everything is disappearing. The sky is blue and sunny, and we're going to see the world for as it really is. And yeah, it's an ugly place, but at least we get to see it for what it really is.
I agree with that, and I think that it's going to be an amazing future. I mean, the whole community has just been nothing about, doom and gloom and fear mongering for so long. The only people that have been talking about a bright future, unfortunately, has been the New Age people and the New Age cults and the old school UFO cults. Transforming the Earth into the new transition is going on. We're going to go into the next evolutionary level above human. The Earth's going to be transformed into a 5D Earth and all that. I think that there's a more realistic take on that is possible, and that we can live here harmoniously without trying to kill each other every second, and all these wars that are going on and will maybe continue to go on if we don't change some kind of trajectory. But also at the same time, it almost seems like it's just too late, that we've just gotten ourselves down into such a big rut that it's going to almost take a miracle to get us out of this gigantic hole that we've dug ourselves into. But I do believe that it's possible, and could possibly happen. So we got our fingers crossed. And thanks for having me on, Jay. Really appreciate your time this evening. It was a wonderful conversation, and we'll do it again whenever they start to wheel out some more. Maybe for the 70th anniversary, they might. I don't think it's going to be like this for the next anniversary, but yeah, it's really incredible. And check out our film, JFK X: Solving the Crime of the Century, on Amazon Prime now, and be looking forward to our next film, which we're going to start working on here pretty soon.
Very soon, in fact, within the next few weeks. So yeah, thanks for coming, Ryder, and everybody, thanks for watching. Jay Weidner, Reality Check, and things are going to get better. I guarantee it. We are now moving out of a certain kind of era, and we're moving into a new era, and it's going to become very, very wild very soon. All right. But thanks for watching, everybody, and we'll see you next time.